Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's Walmart,
and turkey.
built for your business. Who knew?
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
We love that we get to record Sewing Club podcast on Turrbal and Yagara country. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. Welcome to the Sewing Club podcast. I'm Kylie from Kylie and the Machine.
And I'm Gemma from Sewing Gem.
And today is the first episode of 2025 and season 2.
Season 2, yeah. Really exciting to be bringing you the new season, new year. Mm-hmm. And we've got a good one to start with, haven't we?
A very interesting one. Something that's a little bit different.
Bit different, yeah.
But not really.
Not really. And, well, we should introduce what the pattern and everything is first before we start talking about it, I think. Kylie?
Yeah. So today we're going to introduce you to Birgitta Helmersson, who is an Australian-Swedish pattern designer.
And I guess what makes her different from lots of other pattern designers is that all her patterns are zero waste.
Yes. What is zero waste?
What is zero waste? To be honest with you, I didn't know. And I really wanted to make one of her patterns to sort of like do my research, really, find out a little bit more about it. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that with a zero waste pattern is that literally when you cut out the pattern pieces, you are left with absolutely no waste. All of that fabric becomes your garment.
Yeah. So, sometimes you buy extra fabric or not enough fabric and you have to make a jigsaw puzzle with a regular pattern. But this type of pattern, it's just a rectangle and all the pieces fit inside the rectangle.
And you do have, well, for the pattern that we made, which was the zero waste tiered dress.
Yes.
We had some templates, if you like, that we could draw around on the fabric. And then other parts of the dress, for example, the front and the back skirt, they were just drawn on with a chalk. I used to use a chalk pencil and a ruler directly onto the fabric. And I have to be honest, I was quite nervous when I first picked up the pattern and I thought, this isn't my normal way of going about making a pattern. I feel a little bit out of my comfort zone here.
Me too.
But I think my advice would be when you first start, the hardest part of it is going to be the placing it all on the fabric and the cutting.
Yes.
So give yourself some extra time there. Make sure you read the booklet carefully, get your head around what the different widths of fabric is going to do, I guess, to the pattern pieces, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because when you think about zero waste and like fabric, you think, well, there's so many different types of fabric, there's different widths, there's different selvages, and how can a pattern fit me when it's just being cut from a rectangle that could be any width, or to me, there's like no boundaries to it. So it was hard to get my brain around it.
Yeah, and I can't begin to imagine how hard it is when you're the pattern designer and you're coming up with all the different layouts for different fabric widths and sizes. I mean, it was just giving me a headache thinking about it. So don't worry, though, because the hard work has been done for you.
Yes, exactly.
You just need to spend a little bit of time at the beginning, I guess, understanding what the differences are between, a normal standard paper pattern and this pattern. And then once you've cut it out, you're kind of on the home stretch.
Yes, and the fact that we don't have all this paper to print out. There are some little bits of paper templates, but it's not the whole garment. So it's like not only reducing waste of the fabric, but also paper as well.
Yeah, I've actually got the templates here. Like, I know you can't see them, it's obviously a very rich thing. It's like literally 4 little bits of card that I've got in front of me here. It's like hardly anything.
Yes. And we should describe the dress because I was thinking I actually have an extra piece because I did the different view.
So you did the sleeves.
Yes.
Okay, great. So do you want to start by describing what you did and then I'll explain what I did?
So like let's describe the garment. So the zero waist tiered dress surprisingly has many options. So you have a strapless, like a singlet, thin strap type dress with a bib at the front and the back and a gathered skirt.
Yep.
Which the gathers start just above the bust.
The panel that's at the top here, it sits on the chest, so not over the bust. So it's quite good from a fitting perspective from that.
And then there's a couple of lengths.
There are a couple of lengths. So you've got view A and view C, which are both like a spaghetti strap. View A doesn't have the additional gathered panel on the bottom, and view C is a bit longer. View B and view D both they're the same. So view B is shorter, view D is longer with the additional panel on the bottom, but they both have sleeves.
And you might think, well, how do we know it's going to fit me because I might be a different size to someone else? Well, there's actually sizes within this pattern as well. So extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, and 2XL.
That's right. And
how do you get all those different sizes?
But it was quite an easy dress to fit.
Yes,
I would say. So that was a good thing, I suppose, when it comes to thinking about that. I think the fact that it doesn't go over the bust and it's gathered probably helps that.
Yes. Well, my initial thoughts are, okay, I have made one of Birgitta's patterns before, and I think essentially instead of when you normally cut something, you're cutting out the least amount of fabric so that it fits the best. So if you're therefore keeping all the fabric there, then it's going to be more of an oversized fit because you're carrying all the fabric on your body instead of just picking the parts that you want and discarding the rest. So knowing that, we're not aiming for, a perfectly fitted garment. We're aiming for something that is comfortable to wear and that, looks nice.
And that, you sort of think, if you're going to be putting all the fabric in, are you going to end up effectively in a sack? But it's not like that at all, is it? It's been really carefully thought out in terms of, being tighter in the right places and gathered and
I'm amazed by the shapes that you can achieve from simply cutting curves from one piece and then you end up with the reverse of that curve and then somehow that becomes the garment.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Like clever little details with facing pieces and, ways of putting extra fabric into the garment without it looking bulky. And I think that's really, testament to Birgitta's skills to be able to do that.
Yes. And she has been doing this for quite a long time. Her background is, starting in fashion and then moving through seeing the waste, seeing the limitations and the impact with sustainability, which, the typical fashion industry has. I think that's pretty... We've encountered that with a lot of the designers we've had.
It seems to be a very common kind of journey that they've been on, that they get into fashion and they think, great, and then they sort of hang around for a bit and they go, well, hang on a minute, this isn't quite what we thought it was going to be. And I don't like the way that, the fact that there's so much wastage is a real problem for, I think, lots and lots of people.
Exactly. And Birgitta isn't, about trends as much as sustainability. And then if that's your focus, she's doing really, really well. In fact, she has a book.
It's amazing.
This is the first time you've seen this book because it just got delivered.
Can I touch it? Ooh, I love it.
It's a really,
so nice.
really, really nice book.
And I think we've sort of said, haven't we, Kylie, because although I haven't seen the book, we've talked about it when we were talking with Birgitta over the interview as well, that the book is actually a really good starting point. If you like the idea of getting into zero waste patterns, it's probably an easier starting point to do that in the book rather than going straight to, say, the tiered dress. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and looking at the individual patterns that you can buy on the website as opposed to the book, they are a lot more detailed. There's a lot more. They're meatier. There's more in there, whereas the book has some really approachable, like, staple pieces that, would be really good to dip your toe in to
and then
zero
you can
waste.
and you can adapt then as well.
Yes.
You know, it's real sort of like a capsule zero waste kind of wardrobe, isn't it?
I loved flicking through this book.
Yeah, it's I want to have a proper look later.
Yeah.
So
And it shows you all the pattern layouts and everything, and then you think, how can you? There's pants, there's jacket, there's dress, there's so many garments in there, and all zero waste. Going back to me making one of these dresses before, I made not this dress, I made another dress before, and yes, it was I had lots of fabric.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of fabric on me, and it felt like a little bit too much. And then I thought, where am I going wrong with this? So I wasn't doing anything wrong, but what I should have been looking at is the width of the fabric that I'm choosing.
Okay,
So
that makes a lot of sense.
Obviously, if you've got a narrower fabric, you're going to end up with a smaller garment, which might suit someone that's an extra small or a small might look for something more narrow. And if you are in the other sizes, especially with it's actually not the XL and the 2XL because they are cut differently.
That's true.
Because of it just has to be that way. But like the medium and the large, you probably would be looking at more standard sizes like the 140, 150.
And even like, you know, you probably want to take into consideration your height because the width of the fabric in terms of the panel pieces is going to make a difference to how long the garment is going to be as well, depending on the pattern.
True.
So if you're taller, you probably want to go for a wider fabric.
Yeah, and there's so much to consider as well because you've also got alternate cutting patterns. If you do want to make something longer or shorter, you can cut on the cross grain, not on the bias, like the opposite to the selvage to the grain line.
Yeah.
And you can achieve a different cutting layout.
Yes.
And it could be because you've got different fabric or just because you want to, I don't know. I don't know. It really just depends what you're pulling out and how things are going to fit.
You've got to kind of think about it. You've got to be a bit of a jigsaw puzzler to want to kind of work it out at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would say, you know, if you haven't made one of these before, like I actually started by just making it out of some cheap fabric. And I'm really glad I did that because I needed to I'm a bit of a doer. Like that's how I learn. And I needed to just do it. And I go, okay. And then I cut into what was going to be my good fabric, you know. So if you're really new to it, that's probably a good way to start.
We caught up with Birgitta this week. She's visiting family in Australia at the moment, so that was nice.
Yeah,
we got to
it was good being in the same time zone.
Yes, because Sweden and Australia.
Yeah, not ideal.
No,
we'll make it work, but
yeah, we would have done anything to talk to her, but it was good that we got to talk in regular business hours.
Yeah, exactly. So when we caught up with Birgitta, we asked her the big question: why zero waste patterns?
So for me, it all started when I was working for some small brands in Melbourne. And actually, I would say that at that time as well, I mean, it was early to mid 2000s, and the brands I was working for, they were actually trying to be as sustainable as they could for that time. You know, everything was produced locally. It was small quantities. They were conscious about the fabrics they were ordering and so on. But I noticed in every job I had, there was not really any attention to waste. I mean, of course, there is to the point of, you know, you don't want to waste so much that you're losing money, but it wasn't something that was maybe taken into consideration as much. And because many of my jobs were so broad, because I would be a part of the design process and the sampling and the pattern making, and then also the manufacturing, because I would visit the factories. So I was really able to see what was going on and also the waste and, you know, all these sort of offcuts. And I'm just like, there has to be another way, you know, there's got to be. And sometimes I would, you know, bring it up and often it would be like, yeah, but, you know, it's just part of the industry and it's sort of leave it at that kind of thing. But I also remember working as well with a really great colleague who, she was a bit older and she was like the mum of the studio. She looked after everyone, but she was also very conscious of waste. And I think that was very like common for, I mean, my grandmother, my Swedish grandmother, she saved everything. You know, she saved every scrap of fabric. She did rag rugs from, you know, she made her own clothes. It was very practical. It wasn't this kind of like beautifully designed. I mean, they were beautiful, but they were like practical. She did it for reasons of like economic reasons, and you know they didn't have the money to waste on excess fabrics and things. So I think I think in some ways I was quite inspired by her, but I think also just seeing it and then thinking, well, surely I can figure out a way to not waste as much. And zero waste pattern making has actually been around for a very, very long time. I think it's just coming back, back around now. And a lot of people think it's this new concept, but it's not. So I think that's quite interesting too, that it's hard to find a lot of information from the past about it, but many garments in many cultures in the past, such as the kimono in Japan, a lot of like undergarments in Europe and other things. And, fabrics were woven by hand, not long ago, really. So why would you waste 25% of that fabric? So I think, yeah, that's really what got me started. And I think also for me, I don't think that zero waste pattern making is like the only way you should work, but I think it's a really great way to remind you as well to be more resourceful with what you have and to be more conscious of that. It doesn't mean that every design you're going to make is zero waste, and of course zero waste is suited to certain styles as is conventional patterns. But yeah, I find that people who pick up the zero waste pattern making, when they go to do a conventional pattern, they actually notice the waste more and they get more creative with minimizing that because you're more conscious of it.
Yeah, so after our chat, and I learnt about the kimono through our chat, I went on a bit of a deep dive rabbit hole, as you will, about the kimono and how it was designed as a zero waste garment because, yeah, it's a philosophy of just not wasting. It's very ingrained in the culture. And yeah, when you look at the shape of a kimono and then you look at the construction, I would encourage you to Google this as well, listeners, like how a kimono is traditionally cut is really clever. And once you can see, the pieces and how it goes together, then it kind of clicks in your mind how another garment could be put together like this.
A good starting point then for someone that's not used to working in this way.
Yeah. And Birgitta did say that often beginners tend to have less trouble getting their head around this method of cutting because they don't have as much
preconceived ideas about how to do things. Yeah.
So you almost have to, when you're cutting, just trust the process, forget about what you normally do, and kind of envision the pieces all coming back together eventually.
Yep. We did ask Birgitta, where do people tend to get stuck, I suppose, where they are, making zero waste patterns for the first time. Mm-hmm. And this is what she said.
Probably the thing that I think a lot of people, from what I hear, that a lot of people struggle with the maths of it. And it's not like you have to do a lot of maths, let's face it, but it's this idea that instead of just placing this paper pattern on the fabric, drawing around it and cutting it, sometimes you've got to do a little bit of maths, work out, the width you're using based on what template you might use or the size you might do. So there's small little kind of maths things that you might have to do. That can be sometimes a hindrance in the beginning, but it's actually not that hard once you get started on it. I'm trying to think, I think like one thing can be keeping an eye on which grain lines are which. I notice that a lot when I'm working with students, that in the beginning when they're first tracing out their pieces and figuring out where to place everything, they can lose sight quite easily of like where their fold is and where they're supposed to place, all the pieces. So I think that's an easy mistake to make. And I would recommend for that you always have your pattern beside you, the layout beside you, with your fold line going the same way that you have it on your table. So you're always looking at the pattern, the direction it should be laying on your fabric.
There's some great tips there.
Yes.
Yeah. We were wondering what, if you cut the fabric wrong, because there's no room for, error there. There's no extra. What do you do then?
Yeah, like if you make a really big cut.
Yeah.
I think really the biggest tip I would give is just to not be afraid of it. Just try it. And also don't be afraid of making a mistake or mistakes, plural. I really think that's how you learn. And I think often we're afraid to try something because we don't think it's going to work out perfectly or it's not going to be the way that we imagine it. And it kind of stops you from actually trying it. So I just think that's the biggest thing. And I just think have fun with it. We don't need to be so serious about every little detail being perfect. And often, those mistakes end up making the garment in a way. Sometimes, I've done quite a lot of workshops recently and there's been plenty of these little whoops moments, someone's cut the neck out on the front and the back when they were supposed to just do the front, things like this. But we found ways to fix it, And they were really beautiful details of the garment as well. So I think just go for it and don't be afraid. I think that's the biggest thing.
Ooh, I love it when a mistake turns into a design feature.
We wanted to find out a bit more as well, didn't we, about the skills that somebody needs to be able to make a zero waste pattern.
I think the main thing would be that as long as you have made a simple garment, that you've used a machine, you've sewn some pieces together and made a simple garment. If you are a beginner, I would recommend just starting with one of the simpler patterns first as well. The pant is very simple, and even the skirt, I mean, if you can learn to gather.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's
and
Walmart,
jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
You've got social dialed in. Search is doing its thing. So why do your marketing results look the same as 6 months ago? That's because you're fishing in the same pond as everyone else. Podcast listeners are a different audience entirely. More engaged, harder to reach through traditional channels, and ready to act when someone they trust makes a recommendation. We're Acast, and we put them right in front of you. Browse thousands of the world's leading podcasts, book host reads or run your own ads, and track every conversion in real time. Same skills you already have, brand new results. Acast. Acast.com/advertise.
So did you do a top, Kylie?
No, and I know I said I was going to, and I that was my intention because I need tops, but I decided to just pick some fabric from my stash and just use as much of it as I can on this one garment, just, you know, because that's the whole point of the thing. So I ended up making View B, which is the shorter length skirt with the puffy sleeves.
Can't go wrong with some puffy sleeves.
Yes. And what did you make?
I didn't have puffy sleeves, but I do love puffy sleeves. But I was thinking, you know, summer in Brisbane. So I did View C, which is strappy but has the gathered panel on the bottom.
Right. How much fabric did you end up using?
Oh, that's a good question.
Was it something from your stash or did you buy it?
No, I did buy it, and it was a linen kind of rayon blend, so it had a lot of drape to it. I reckon I used about 2.5 meters.
Birgitta did have something that a customer shared with her, is that if you're going to go buy the fabric, she always buys a little bit less and then just tries to make it work.
Yeah. And often there's a lot of like excess fabric there, and you can make it work, but it's a risky business. You don't want to be left with not enough fabric, you know?
No. I just used as much as I could of the fabric. There are a couple of little tricky things that might trip you up if you didn't know, like the straps.
Well, they're not in the pattern if you're not making the sleeve, are they?
Yes, that's right. So the straps are made from the piece of fabric that you make the sleeves out of.
Yeah, and if you're
but
not
you
making
need the straps.
Yeah.
If you're making the one without the sleeves.
And if you're not making the sleeve version, it tells you just to find some scraps.
Yes.
So you can use contrast or
but I would recommend not doing that. I would recommend cutting it off the selvage edge or something.
That's what I did that actually, because I wanted to have them out of the same fabric.
Yes. And then the binding as well.
You have to, have, that's not included in the pattern.
No.
So you have to make that. And again, I didn't have anything in my stash that I really wanted to use in my plain black dress. So I just made that out of the fabric. So I did have some excess fabric, but enough excess to do something else.
Yes.
With that excess.
That's right. That's the thing. Like sometimes I buy a fabric and I don't know what I want to do with it yet. I might buy 2.5 meters or something, and then I can end up making, you know, a top and a skirt or a top and shorts or something out of it. And
something else.
And you can really like get a lot out of a bit of fabric.
Yeah.
But this is like to the extreme.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have matching binding, I don't think this is a great suggestion, but I ended up having to cut some fabric out of my bodice, out of the skirt on the side because it's almost on the bias.
And it's gathered anyway.
Yeah, so it's like an A-line skirt. So on the front piece, I cut a little strip off because you can see the binding on the outside as well. So I thought I just want it to match.
Yeah. No, I felt the same, and I just had enough to be able to just cut it out. And it's not a massive piece of binding. So it's not like you're cutting, a great big long piece all the way through the fabric. It's just for those little underarm pieces. So
that's right.
Probably about 20 centimeters all up, maybe a bit more, maybe 30, but not long.
And pay attention to the alternate cutting. I saw that after. I cut the whole thing out, and then I read through the whole construction, but then that's at the very end, and there's some alternate pattern cutting options. If you've got different width fabric or the different sizes need different layouts. So check that out. It's on page 18 and 19.
I think my advice would be, if you're not going from the book and you're new to this, just take the time to read all the instructions before you start. Because I found that was a bit daunting for me, but I think if I hadn't have done that, I would have found it much harder. And as I said before, just take your time on the cutting. Where I told you I made one out of some cheaper fabric, and then I made it out of my good fabric. And when I made it second time, I did make some alterations. So this pattern doesn't necessarily lend itself, this way of working, I should say, doesn't necessarily lend itself to making alterations.
Because why?
And you know I love alterations. I can't help myself. But the reason I made the alterations, it was a very basic one, but simply based on my measurements, I made the small size. But when I actually tried it on in the first version, it was very tight, as I've always said, across under my arms, basically around my back. So I ended up adding 4 centimetres in total. So the 2 side seams, adding a centimetre to all of those, which then also added to the facing piece that was going to go on the skirt. So that ultimately meant that I did end up with the tiniest amount of waist. So we're talking probably a piece like 15 centimetres by 1 centimetre, and 4 of those at the end. And I think that when you come to do things like alterations, it's going to be a bit harder with this pattern. But Birgitta did have an excellent tip around it. And she said, if you think you're going to have to do alterations, sometimes it's better just to go for the bigger size and add in, tucks or darts or things like that. So, you can go about it both ways, but that's a good tip, I think, if you know you're probably going to have to do certain alterations.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that idea of using darts. Yeah, choosing a size up and then being able to kind of pull in places with darts. Or we talked about how you could add casings with elastic to different areas, or not necessarily this pattern, but just in general how you could modify the zero waste pattern to fit you better without taking fabric away.
Exactly. Because there's sort of, when you think of zero waste, you do sort of think of quite, generous size patterns. But it is, part of the reason I sew is because I feel like I want a really good fit. I think most people would say they want a good fit, right? So sometimes you do need to make those little tweaks and things to give it the shaping that you want.
I think it's so cool how like the underarm curve becomes those neat little facings for the split hem.
It's crazy. And it wouldn't have mattered if I'd have kept those facing pieces with the extra fabric on. They could have just been a bigger curve. Facing. It wouldn't have been a problem. But I just thought, well, I'll just do it as per the instructions, But it wouldn't have been a big deal. I could have just included them in. But it does take a little bit of thinking about, like, if I extend out this pattern, what's that going to impact, So it's kind of, it's a cool way of working.
I did a couple of modifications as I was sewing it, as I'm trying it on and just working out. Like initially when I look at any garment that's got a bib at the front, generally that is always too big for me, either in the height or the width or both. But actually this was too narrow, if anything.
Oh, okay.
Like I made the extra small, and I think if I made it again, I'd make the small so the bib was wider.
Okay.
And I did notice that when I looked at people, people that have already made it, it does tend to be kind of pretty narrow.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Yeah.
So if you're not narrow across, because I am narrow across the chest, and I felt I needed more. So I would like more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I do have my scraps with me.
Oh,
I brought them
excellent.
just for show and tell. So this is the scraps from the actual cutting.
Oh, wow.
So when I cut the pattern so it's basically all selvages really, because the fabric I used was a digital print, so the edges are just white. Obviously, I'm not going to keep those in. So that was what I got from cutting, but then I ended up making a few alterations, and then I ended up cutting away another little bit of fabric.
Okay.
And that was...
And where was that?
A lot from the sleeve. The sleeve is a lot of fabric.
Okay, I didn't do the sleeve, so...
A lot. It's the biggest
it's
amount of fabric
sleeve.
that I've ever put into a single sleeve before. And had I used more narrow fabric, it would have been a smaller sleeve and it probably would have fit me better. So I'm going to be on the hunt for some narrower fabric. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's not something you have to think about normally. So it just sort of, throws a bit of a curveball at you, but it's good. It's quite an instinctive way of sewing, actually, if you think about it.
Yes.
Drawing straight onto the fabric,
Cutting it and putting it all back together.
And sewing it. Yeah, perfect.
I found the hardest part was just getting started.
I agree. I
couldn't bring myself to do it. I put it off for so long.
I'm going to make a mistake.
Oh my gosh. I had this ready to print. I printed, put it together. By the way, you do have to put a couple of A4 or letter pieces together. But
nothing.
It's maybe,
The sleeve would be a bit more involved, I reckon.
I think it was about under 10 pieces. So. Yeah. I had that done so long ago. And I brought the fabric out, I placed it on, and then I just packed it away again and then brought it out and then packed it away.
Did you cut
again.
it or did you just,
I brought it out and I put I don't know what I'm doing. And then,
Yeah.
But
we both got there.
I know. And as soon as I got past that, I see now it's, this is how you put it together. Yeah. And then just follow the steps and it went together really easily.
I say I really enjoyed working this way and really glad we did it.
It is quite difficult. Like difficult as in there's lots of little parts to it.
Yeah.
But I did end up taking some length off that bib after I'd made it.
Yeah, okay.
I draped it over my head and I kind of looked at it. It was either going to be too low, as in the gathers would have been around my nipples, or it was going to be like choking me up in my throat. I can imagine
because I feel like it's the right size here on me. My other tip would be for this particular dress. I don't know what your fabric was like, Kylie, but when I made it out, my cheaper stuff didn't have as much drape, and I didn't like the way it sat on my bust because it was like lots of gathers. But as soon as I made it out of fabric with a bit of drape, I loved it. I was really, really happy.
Yeah, the fabric I chose is a cotton, but it's a very light cotton sateen, so it does have more drape than a regular quilting cotton or anything like that. And I think it works well because it's very light. But yeah, light fabric. It does say
and it makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I didn't for my sort of first one. I was like, I'll just make it quickly, get my head around it. But which I know is not in the the vein of zero waste, but I will put it to good use.
No, because she said you have to give things a go. You just have to try it out. You have to try. You might make mistakes in the first go.
It was a valuable learning curve.
There are a few things in the pattern that I thought, I would have done it differently, but then it worked fine. Like the way that it's hard to explain. The facing of the split on the side seam where at the bottom, where the hem is, I feel like it could have been done a little bit differently so that all the things were enclosed.
Yes.
All the raw edges were enclosed around the hem.
And I wanted to understitch as well before it went. But the little things like that. And also at least say that bit there, turning back on itself. There were a couple of little bits like that. But it wasn't a big deal.
You can do that.
You can do that. Yeah.
And then I thought, if you're going zero waste, then we should just go zero overlocker too. Like, there's a couple of bits where you could do the overlocker, but you could also French seam, flat-felled seam, something. And then the other thing was I didn't have enough binding, even though I cut that bit. So for the sleeve, you're actually meant to bind the sleeve and then you attach it. But I didn't do that. So I just folded it down.
Fine.
And sewed it.
Thinking outside the box.
Exactly. And then just put it together. And it's definitely not going to fall apart.
It's a great dress just for hanging out in the summer, isn't it? Just, pool vibes, beach vibes. I like it.
And you could make the strap a little bit thicker if that's
I've seen
what
that
like.
Actually, and I think it does look really nice, a bit thicker as well.
Yeah, because if you cut it as it says in the pattern, you end up with like a 1 centimetre.
It's quite narrow.
Quite narrow, yeah. But, that's up to you, and you can do it at the cutting stage. So
that's true.
Because honestly, the sleeve if you have like my fabric was 145, so it's quite wide, I could have taken a lot more out of there for the for the strap.
With the sleeveless version, I should say, you have to decide the length of the straps at a particular point in the pattern. How does it work with the sleeve?
It's the same.
Same.
I cut some off initially because I tried it on, because you can make the bib and then you can sort of drape it over you and sort of see, well, where is it going to be? And I saw that there was about 4 centimeters that was definitely a knot needed.
Yep.
So I got rid of that. But did you make it from the pattern or did you cut the strap?
I cut the strap
a certain length
as per, so you have to just look in the instructions and it tells you the length that she recommends. So I just cut that, and mine was pretty much spot on for that. I did actually make it longer in case I needed it to be longer, but I realised that I didn't, and that the suggested size actually worked well for me.
Yeah, and I did the naughty thing and I cut the length off mine instead of just putting it in there.
Naughty, so naughty.
Yeah, well, I was trying to be pure.
Yeah.
But then once I'd already cut a couple of other things off, I was like, well, I'm just going to cut these little straps here.
And, if you're not going to wear it because of those things, it completely defeats the point. So it's worth making those changes for sure.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to get super hung up over a little. And then it got me thinking that a lot of patterns, you grade the seam, and there's not really instructions for doing that.
No, true.
Well, we're meant to keep the fabric in there.
Yeah.
But then I did grade a couple of seams, and then I realized, oh, wow, every time you grade a seam, that's more waste.
Yeah.
And then because I was adding to my little
I did the same
of the little parts that I had made, I have produced this waste.
You're going to
unnecessarily.
But then you are going to do something with it. Don't you have a plan for a yoga bolster?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it's not going to waste. You're just going to bolster.
I'm just going to shove it into a bolster.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your favourite part?
Not the gathering. My favourite part was making the bib and like sewing the box part of the bib and then turning it out like that. And probably doing the facing, because that kind of gave me a bit of weird satisfaction doing the sort of curved on the, that little detail. How about you?
Speaking of the gathering, when you're doing gathering and you make your stitch length 4, 5, whatever you're going to make it, I did it at 2.5.
Oh, did it gather okay?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Did you get nice little small gathers?
Yes.
Because I always thought with gathering, it's worth doing a smaller stitch length as you can get away with, because then you tend to get neater gathers.
It was very neat.
Oh, great. That's good.
I have not unpicked the row of stitches, so I don't know what perforation is going to be left over there.
Oh, you'll find out soon.
I find that if you do end up with a lot of those holes, good steam, bit of water, steam, and they puff up and they
I know
go away.
We've talked about this before, but when you gather, how many rows of gathering do you do? 2. Yeah. I do 2 to 3. Always one, like we've talked about, outside of the seam allowance, so in the main part of the garment. But as Kylie just said, it's worth testing it on your fabric, just making sure that you're not going to get any big puncture marks. And then 1 to 2, depending on how big your seam allowance is. So if it's a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance, and I might even do 2 if I want to get those really tiny gathers. And there's quite a lot of fabric to gather in this, so it's not a bad idea. And my fabric frayed quite a lot, so I had a little bit of had a few choice words with it as I was gathering, which is hence why I said not the gathering.
Yeah, well, I feel like because you've got, at that stage, you've got the skirt, and then you've got all these stitching lines. You've got the binding with all these threads. I just felt like I had threads going everywhere.
There were threads
and it's
everywhere.
like, get them into the bib. And then as soon as they're in and stitched on,
voila.
Yay.
But no, I was worried the whole dress was going to just disappear before my eyes as I was gathering it. Bits were just coming off, but I just hung in there and it was good. And another thing I like to do when I'm gathering is, before you start gathering, find the center point of the bib, find the center point of the skirt, front and back, and I pin there, and then the 2 ends, and then hopefully you end up with more even gathers that way.
And you can adjust. I do that too. You 3 pins, and then you can adjust them still within a little bit. And then you're doing half of that and half of that.
And I know we disagree on this, because I do gathers up, you do gathers down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but apparently industry is gathers down. So,
well, look, this is what I've heard.
Yeah.
I've done it again and again, and it seems to work.
It seems to work. Well, if it works, don't fix it.
I also thought that if you wanted to make this out of a print, like mine's a print, but it's not a directional print. I think that directional prints in general equal more waste of fabric because you have to cut things a certain way. So I definitely would not recommend using any kind of directional prints because you're cutting. When you're first doing it, you don't actually know what's up and what's down.
You don't know.
So let's just
keep it easy.
Yeah, stick with non-directional prints or plain fabrics, I think.
And I mean, this goes for any sewing pattern, but I was obviously working with plain black fabric. So I like to use some of that Scotch magic tape. So what I was doing was before I cut the pieces, I got some Scotch magic tape and put it on all of the pieces and wrote the letter of the piece, and also it gave me a marker for which was the right side and which was the wrong side. So labeling your fabric is quite important as well because you're not going to have a pattern piece attached to it.
No, that's right. I mean, there's only really the templates plus the skirt, and the center back has a seam.
You can work it out totally.
Yes.
But I found that a really good way of just knowing and not being confused, particularly with, I don't know, there's something about working with plain black fabric that I find is can be easy to confuse the right and the wrong side. And you don't want to have, I know mine didn't have a nap, but I always worry there's just going to be a slightly different look to it from the front to the back. And so it's a good way of identifying that.
Yeah. Did you end up cutting on the fold or did you cut it flat?
I cut it flat.
Okay.
And I really like working like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you just drew it all out.
I just drew it all out and cut it all out. Yeah. How about you?
I did it on the fold because I thought that would be quicker and it worked out fine. I think if I had a different, more shifty fabric, I would have done it flat.
I had to do my alteration and that's what I needed to see it, the whole thing. And I just felt like if it was on the fold, for some reason, my brain was going to struggle. Whereas if I could actually just see it and work out all the parts, then it was going to work. It was going to be less likely to go wrong.
Yes, definitely. I feel like I'm saying all these like negative things about it, but it's only because I really enjoy and I find it so interesting and so cool that you can get a garment with all these different shapes and like a 3D garment out of, all these puzzle pieces and there's curves. I just think that's amazing. I don't want to, it sounds like I'm like, oh, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, but it's like, I have a lot of respect for this method.
Absolutely.
I'm just picking things at it because...
Yeah, we're just trying to give you a thorough, I guess, review. And I think what you have to remember, not so much for you, Kylie, but for me, this is a very new way of working. And I think whenever you come at something that's new, it's going to be a few little bits of like, oh, that felt a bit weird. That was a bit different. But like I've said before, it does make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Like the approach.
It's actually less work.
It's less work. There's less paper. There's, all sorts.
Yeah.
We did actually have a chat with Birgitta about, how projector files would be even, another step to zero waste in terms of the pattern pieces. And
I didn't love putting the couple of things together, I got to say. But then I had to check myself. And I'm like, it's 10 pages. You're very privileged in that you got an A0 printer. And I was like, I got to put these together. But
yeah,
just silly.
And it wasn't like it was all the skirt pieces or anything like that.
But a projector
could be a way to go.
Yeah, for the template
something
pieces.
to think about in the future. I mean, it depends how much work is involved because as we know, these small companies often working just themselves or with a small team.
Wearing all the hats.
Perhaps producing projector files isn't going to be at the top of the list, but something to think about anyway. We just need to get a projector ourselves, really.
Yes.
There's no point suggesting something if it's, if most of us don't have a projector.
That's true.
I'd love to hear from actually any sewers that use projectors and how they find them because it's something I've thought about and I've kind of parked it and thought, I'll get there one day. But
I'm very surprised because you and your husband, you're pretty techie.
Yeah, that's more him than me.
But together...
He would love that as a project, yeah. I could outsource that to him for sure.
He would be like, okay.
Yeah.
He's got his project.
Yeah. We have actually got a projector as well. But anyway, there's thought for another day. I think it's the setup that has put me off because I know people have them from like the ceiling and things like that. And I love that idea, but that sounds like quite a lot of work. So
we can figure it out.
Well, yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so the ratings, Kylie.
Ooh.
So sizing inclusivity is first.
Yes, it's a little hard, but I mean, in general, most of these things we're, judging on or rating, kind of a little bit different because of the nature of the zero waste
We're
pattern.
not comparing, I guess, like for like.
Yes.
But the sizing does go up to a 2XL.
Yeah, so XS to 2XL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the hip measurement in the largest is 156.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we gave that 4 stars.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about your fabric as well.
It really is.
You're going to get more
Garment volume.
garment with a wider fabric, and larger sizes with wider fabric, and
Yep.
narrower fabric is smaller sizes.
So yeah, bear that in mind when you pick your fabric.
Yes.
Drafting. So this is, again, it's just
Yes.
a different
Yes.
way of working, but I mean, everything went together really. I mean, it all fitted on that rectangular fabric.
did.
So the drafting was
Yep.
was good.
It all went together really well.
Yeah.
And it still blows my mind that you can cut something out 100% and put it back. I know I've said this like so many times, but it just still blows my mind.
It's just the beauty of sewing, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a lot like Tetris.
It is. It is. That coming from 2D to 3D is a very rewarding process.
Yes.
So we gave that 4 stars.
Yes.
So instructions is next.
I think the instructions were, I found them fine. I could
Yep.
put the thing together.
Absolutely.
No problems whatsoever. There may be some things I would do differently, but that's, always your preference when you're sewing something.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, a complete hand-holding experience. As
No.
you say, there were some things in there that maybe, if you're a beginner, you might want to go away and look into a bit more depth. But I felt fine following it. And there are actually resources on the website as well. So it's worth bearing that in mind.
Lots of photos and tutorials.
Yeah, exactly. So the resources are there. If you want to go and find them, they're there.
I do enjoy the hand-drawn
Yeah, they're cool.
illustrations.
They are cool. So we gave that 3.5.
Yeah.
Difficulty.
Oh, I think every little step that you do is easy,
Yeah.
like in constructing it.
It's just getting to that point. I
Yes.
think if you can get to construction, you're going to be fine.
Yes, cut it out first.
Cut it out.
The cutting is definitely the most difficult part.
And it's not that difficult. It's just different.
Yes.
But for that reason, I think we wanted to say that it is, the thinking about the width of the fabric, all of those things at the beginning just takes a little bit more thinking about. Don't be put off though. But for that reason, I think we said a 3 because it's likely to be a different way of working for most home sewists.
Definitely.
And then price.
Yes. It's 28.
28, yeah.
That's AUD. So it's like at the top end.
Yeah,
of
top
the-
end of the $2 signs. Yeah. It's worth noting that, you get a lot of value in the book.
Yes.
And we talked about the book as well.
Yes.
How many patterns, Kylie, do you know how many
Oh, it
patterns are in?
says, okay, so it's called Zero Waste Patterns, and it says 20 projects to sew your own
20.
wardrobe.
Wow.
And there are lots
Yeah, okay.
of patterns in there.
So that's, how much was that? Do you remember?
Oh, I paid $30 from
$30,
Amazon. Yeah.
That's great value anyway. But we're rating the tier dress,
Yes.
so we're going to do $2 signs.
Yeah,
for that.
and as you said, the patterns that you buy individually, they're more detailed.
Yeah,
and
they
the
are.
ones in the book are a little bit more simple. So yeah, that's just a good
Makes
starting
sense.
point.
Absolutely. So overall review, how many Sewing Club stamps do we give it?
Overall, we give it 4
4 Sewing Club stamps.
It was a hard thing to get started.
It was, but we're glad we did.
And I think I just want to say, if you're listening and you're feeling unsure and, we get it, we understand, but let me encourage you, don't let the fear of trying something new stop you, because after I cut it out, it just felt so nice and everything went together nice, and it was just actually enjoyable and pleasurable. It was just that hurdle of cutting.
Yeah.
And I think you can do it.
Absolutely. Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Just spend that extra 10 minutes reading the book and you can totally do it.
And read those back 3 pages
Yeah.
before you cut as well.
And make sure you know the width of your fabric, and then everything will be fine.
Yes. And we would love to see some zero waste tier dresses made from the podcast
Yeah, that would
and
be
from
cool.
our tips. So
Yeah.
hopefully some pop up soon.
Send them to us. That would be awesome.
And don't forget your discount on this pattern. You
Yes.
can use the code Sewing Club Podcast on Birgitta's website to get a discount on the tier dress pattern.
Amazing.
Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear what the next pattern is.
It's very cool. The next pattern is by Pattern Fantastique, and it's the Ether Dress pattern.
Ooh,
I'm excited to make this one.
me too. Looks like a beautiful summer dress.
Perfect for a Brisbane summer, I reckon.
Yeah, it's divine. So Nita Jane has very kindly given all the listeners 25% off the pattern.
Oh, wow.
So just pop in the usual discount code, Sewing Club Podcast, over at Pattern Fantastique, and to get that fun discount. Thanks, Nita.
So thanks so much for listening, everyone. We would love it if you could join our Facebook group, the Sewing Club Podcast community, where we can share our makes and tips and tricks along the way.
And we have an Instagram as well, which is sewingclub.podcast. We have feedback forms attached to that. You can see our garments in the wild. We post videos there, and we love hearing all the feedback, so keep it coming.
We'd love it if you could subscribe, rate, review the podcast. All of that helps to get this podcast to as many people as possible.
Till next time.
Till next time.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's
and
Walmart,
jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.